The principles of natural healing and the knowledge about healing plants is as old as mankind. And as the ancient Ayurvedic texts like Charak Samhita describe, was handed down ages ago from the universe to the sages or rishis of early mankind. So let me put it this way. We have nothing to add, nothing to invent. Everything universal or true, everything which has to do with the eternal continuum of life, whether gross or subtle, is already there. We just need to remember as it was before. We have forgotten, that is for sure. Why have we forgotten? We have lost the contact with our roots. We were given to believe that out there, in the relative field of life, the field of matter, of action, was something so incredible, so miraculously promising, that we thought maybe we should go and look after these things which are so tempting to unravel. And nobody has looked into this ever before. Maybe it would be greater than that what we have now. Maybe we have wasted our time in playing around with all these ways of life that our forefathers adored. Maybe we do know better now. Carlfried Count Durkheim, the famous German Zen philosopher, once dedicated a whole book on Japan, calling it Japan and the Culture of Silence. It is true, it is this silence from which all true cultures emerge. And it is this silence where true knowledge of healing emerges too. Let me therefore make another statement. Every healing comes from silence, and every silence is the beginning and the end of true healing. Medicinal plants have inhaled and exhaled this silence during the process of their evolution and individual growth. And they grow ideally in an environment far from the noise of the modern machine world, which we once invented to serve us, and which has started to invade our world and to enslave us to a hardly bearable extent. Herbs that sprang up in time of old, 3 ages earlier than the gods, says hymn 97 of Rig Veda, the 10th mandala, the oldest text of mankind, and continues, Reliever is your mother's name, and hence restorers are you called. Rivers are you with wings that fly, keep far whatever brings disease. Yes, medicinal plants are incredibly old. In their dependence from soil and air, the day and the night rhythms, and the seasonal rhythms, and in their intrinsic openness to the solar, the lunar, and stellar radiations, they absorb terrestrial and cosmic influences which deeply infuse themselves into the core of their physical, chemical, and energetic structure, and which define the very fingerprint of their healing capacity. The world of plants is still grounded in the basic unity of life, which we have to find back in order to get healed in freedom. Plants are our allies on this path, created by divine intelligence, in order to help us to rise in strength, recreate health if it is lost, and make our lives comfortable and in tune with the heartbeat of nature. Thus, plants help us to find the way to our soul, our own inner Atman, our inner light. And in this sense, plants are sacrificing themselves to the higher purpose of the cosmos. Vasant Lad, the renowned Ayurvedic physician, puts it this way in his famous book, The Yoga of Herbs, quote, each thing exists to nourish all others, and in return to be nourished itself. In this manner, each kingdom of nature serves to receive and transmit life. This life is implicit in light and in the transmission of stellar and astral forces. These forces are not all material, but include subtle energies of an occult or spiritual nature. Plants transmit the vital emotional impulses, the life force that is hidden in light. That is the gift, the grace, the power of plants. The existence of plants is a great offering, a sacrifice. They offer us not only their own nutritive values, but the very light and love from the stars, from the cosmos, whose messengers they are. End of quote. So we bow down today to the intelligence of the plant kingdom, through which, around 200 million years ago, the first essential oils were created. These messengers came up with a fresh, foresters, slightly pungent note, typical for the oils of the conifer family. In their extremely versatile character, the oils of the Pinacea family represent probably the oldest aromatic energy on planet Earth. This family of plants is mainly linked to the oxygenation of our planet's atmosphere. Their connection with the human respirational system is oldest folk medicine. It may well be that some rough conditions and transformations in the Earth's atmosphere forced these species to develop the first essential oils, highly terpenic by the way, to protect them against putrefaction on one side and against extremely cold temperatures on the other. It is not surprising that the oldest tree found on Earth, which is over 4,000 years old, is a pine tree, surviving under the ice-cold winds and snows in the high mountains of eastern California. Let us look a bit more into the past and see what happened with the medicinal use of essential oils through time. It may well be that our ancestors discovered the healing effects of certain plants when they burned these in their domestic fires. The smoke of the burned plants was certainly full of medicinal compounds, as we could say today. Until today, the ample use of burning incense of certain resins or woods like myrrh, frankincense, benzoin, agarwood, and others contain high amounts of essential oils, reminding us of the old times when essential oils as such were not yet known, but the effects of certain burned barks, wood, or dried plants was well understood. Other discoveries were quite certainly due to the daily usage of food and decoctions, with each of these primordial communities living in the vicinity of numerous, often endemic medicinal plants. A burial place more than 70,000 years old, discovered in Iraq decades ago, revealed the presence of over 20 medicinal plants, ritually placed around the buried bodies. Among these plants were several species from the Artemisia genus. It is quite doubtful whether our ancestors only through trial and error and through observations discovered the diverse effects of healing plants. Seen from a more holistic angle, knowledge of healing was sacred and occult, linked to the shamans, the yogis, or men of wisdom. And it is they who, through their direct contact with the world of the ancestors, the plant devas, and the higher beings, could absorb and transmit the precise knowledge of how to use the different medicinal plants of their habitat. Distillation came much later, probably not before the Bronze Age. Certain highly developed civilizations between the Euphrates and the Tigris and Aryan peoples on the Indian subcontinent were probably the first to use real distillation equipments made first out of clay to extract essential oils. That happened probably not more than 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. The Egyptians are known to have used essential oils of cedar and myrrh to embalm their dead, but they also used them as medicine, as cosmetics, and also as perfume. Kifi, for example, is probably the most famous of the ancient Egyptian perfumes. It was common practice to wear a cone of essential oils within the hairdress. The heat of the sun and the body would slowly melt the cone, and disperse the aromatic fluid over the skin, enveloping the carrier with a fine fragrance of flowers, herbs, and resins. The Egyptians also made large use of medicinal plants in form of pills, powders, suppositories, and ointments. When Egypt was conquered by the Greek, the latter inherited the knowledge of oils and ointments. It is known that Greek soldiers, for example, carried with them an ointment made from myrrh oil to be applied on open wounds incurred in battle. The famous Greek physician Hippocrates used numerous essential oils and ointments for his own treatments, and when Greece in turn was conquered by the Romans, the knowledge of medicinal plants and their oils went further west, quickly to spread through the Roman Empire. Galen, a famous Roman physician under the reign of Marcus Aurelius, was extremely knowledgeable about medicinal plants and their oils. Himself being linked to a large school of gladiators in Rome, it is said that none of these poor victims of public frenzy died from their wounds under his herbal treatments. It is probably from the Greek, the Middle East, and India that the Arabs received their knowledge about healing plants. Ibn Sena, or Avicenna as he was known in the West, used extensively distillation of medicinal plants for his remedies. When the south of Spain was conquered by the Arabs, it did not take long to spread a huge body of medicinal knowledge, first over southern Europe and then further to the north. Fumigation, ointments, pills, as well as essential oils, all based on medicinal plants, were used to fight off disease, often linked to a lack of hygiene. In early 16th century, the famous astrologer and physician Michel de Nostradame, known as Nostradamus, fumigated whole villages with aromatic plants to fight off the plague. The Black Death had come back after its furious attack on the old continent in the 14th century, when more than 80 million people had died from it within a few years. That is more than half of the population of Europe. It may make modern man smile to see how probably the most devastating catastrophe of the Middle Ages, the plague, was understood by the educated people and physicians of that time. Nobody had any notion whatsoever about microbes, bacterial, fungal infections, let alone of viruses or genetic diseases. And in the case of the plague, it would have needed thousands of physicians like Nostradamus to bring about a tangible success. But from a general viewpoint, and taken without prejudice, it is rather surprising to see how our ancestors, without the scientific knowledge of modern medicine, were able to fight, often with great precision, against major health problems. The aromatic substances or essential oils contained in the herbs burned by Nostradamus to disinfect plague-ridden areas in south of France are known today in exact details with regards to their antibacterial properties. Thyme, oregano, savory, and others were largely available in the south, and their phenolic concentration was high enough to procure sustainable and repeatable results. If the essential oils of these plants had been available on a collective scale and their properties understood, Europe would not have undergone this amazing tragedy. Nostradamus himself did not use book knowledge or scientific research. It was more through the intuitive channels of their consciousness and the direct experience of orally transmitted folk medicine that these physicians approached true healing. And it has been this way until the uprise of modern allopathic medicine, with its blessings and its curse. The tendency to replace ancestral medical experience by synthetic medicine has become the plague of modern medicine. We have thrown overboard what thousands of years of human evolution had absorbed and filtered into oral or written knowledge. The glittering sparkles of modern research and science had been enough to overshadow the ancient foundations of health and wisdom. We have thought that we know all better, but we do not. At least we do not know all better. We know some better, and that's it. And we thought we can afford to forget what innumerable generations had learned, facing certainly not lesser problems in terms of health than our modern times.